at 2 p.m. Eastern webinar series. These webinars leading up to Conference 37 are the top-rated workshops from Conference 36 held last April and May in Dallas, Texas, and are sponsored by Tata Consultancy Services. I am John Sild, and I'm with CS Week, and I'll be your moderator today. CS Week and Conference 37 will be held from April 29th to May 3rd at the Tampa Convention Center, Tampa, Florida. Registration is now open. This program will be recorded and available for playback, as are our other archive presentations found under the Educational Venues /Second Tuesday link on our website. Today's program is Connecting Our Customers to a Smart Energy Future, presented by Mr. Brad Cherry. Attendees are encouraged to upload questions in the Q&A panel as they arise. However, all questions will be held until after the presentation for the Q&A segment. Brad Cherry is presently the manager of the Hahn Readiness Performance Management Group in Customer Service of Southern California Edison. His primary responsibility is leading the Hahn program development, and he provides ongoing Hahn customer support process oversight. Brad previously has played a key role in the development of customer service business plans and goals, along with the development and implementation of performance management tools. Over the last 20 years, Brad has held for a variety of positions at SEC in customer experience management, customer service operations division. He has also held a number of positions at the San Onofre Generating Station. Brad's educational background includes a Bachelor's of Science degree in Information Technology and a Master's in Business Administration. Brad, we thank you for joining us today and for presenting your deck to us.
Well, thank you, John. Here we go. Before I proceed, I want to make sure everybody sees the slides.
We can see it on our end.
Great. Okay. Well, as was mentioned, I'm with Southern California Edison. We're an investor-owned utility in California. We've got about a 50,000 square mile service territory, and we have about 18,000 employees. Presently, we're going through a pretty significant reorganization as we're restructuring a lot of our business in this new smart connected world. Our AMI project was approved in 2008. During the years 2009 through 2012, we installed 5 million meters. Approximately 4.9 million of those meters have been what we would consider program ready. That means that we're billing on them, interval data billing, and we're using them for other Smart Connect enabled programs. In our business case, we had certain drivers that we were after, and it really was about enabling and empowering the customer through wireless connection with the meter to give them near real-time information to make those better energy choices. We don't have, just so everybody in the line knows, most of our residential customers are on a 5-tiered rate, and I'll go into that a little bit more. But we are, obviously, the future will hold more dynamic rates and be able to really utilize some of the Smart Connect technology for that end. This is a shot kind of the roadmap where we've come from. I'll go into this a little bit more, but you'll notice at the onset a large focus on leveraging the interval data for the customer's benefit and making it presentable to them. I'll show you some samples of that on the se.com, our My Account presentation. And then I'll discuss kind of where we've come with the home array network. We started back in 2010 with a field trial, and this was just selected 38 customers who we provisioned the device locally to the meters, and it was really kind of getting our feet wet just to see how the pairing occurred and to ensure that the pairing was resilient, that it would stay paired through time. And also we locally programmed some of the meters with a average tiered pricing just to for the customer to have directionally a cost element to those devices. Then just the next 2 years, we basically had one big project a year. The next year in 2011, we deployed what we call our Interim hand solution. That's kind of like our phase 1 of hand. And I'll go a little bit more into it, but it was more about deploying 500 IHDs and just really putting the basic hand device registration and device management elements in place. And then you move into 2012, where we were able to get more involved with some of the load control elements. We had a big project that we just put out in December that has a number of features, including self-serve hand device registration. And I'll show you some elements of that. And then very briefly, I'll discuss kind of where we're heading. So as I mentioned before, we started off by leveraging this interval data. And every day, we're calculating the bill to date, the projected next bill, the current cost and period ending cost for over 4.7 million accounts and this covers over 90 different rate plans. But what, as I said, with all the residential customers being on the 5-tiered rate, typically this is the bill to date, bill forecast, your current tier position, and then the current tier pricing. As you'll see, we've used that both for the web presentment, and we're also using that in our hand technology, and I'll share how that's done in a little while here. So if you look at the web, even though I do a lot of presentations with the home array networks, I always have to include our web presentment because really the hand is really just a complement to the whole Smart Connect experience that we're going after. The web provides a number of great tools. I know it's a little small, so it's probably hard for some of you to see, but on the far left side there, you have a presentment of the My Account information. And what we've attempted to do is really bring electrical use and the costs and so forth to bring some kind of context to it for our customers. You'll notice up in the upper right-hand corner of that left box is the kind of like a empty tank, and it shows how where they are as filling up that tank, and based on their average daily use, what their bill could be expected to be at the end of the bill cycle. That's been very advantageous for the customers. Then as well as you go further, of course, all this is kind of a drill down. You can get down to the interval data, and I think I have a slide after this that shows a little bit more of that. But the middle graphic there has been appreciated by the customers because it kind of helps them to understand more of the 5 tiers and the pricing involved and how they progress up through their billing cycle on those tiers. And then on the far right, we are showing the Budget Assistant. The Budget Assistant is a tool that a customer can go in and set their target for their bill that they're wanting to go after. And then they can set up notifications. They have a number of options. It could be email, SMS, text message to the cell phone, or an outbound IVR. And they can set up notifications based on the frequency that they desire to let them know about where they are during the bill month in regards to their budget. We've got about 360,000 customers that are signed up on the Budget Assistant. And overall, we've had about we've just under 2 million users of this online experience, and we've even had some customers call in and thank us for these tools without any complaints, which is kind of new for the utility. It's encouraging to hear that the customers are using it and they appreciate the tools. One of the things, obviously there was some operational efficiencies from deploying the smart meters, but I just wanted to show this as well, that we've had over a 30% reduction in billing inquiry calls. And at the same time, customers are more satisfied because they're informed. They understand. They can look at their data, and all of a sudden they can remember, oh yes, I remember the jacuzzi party. I remember now why there's a big load there or whatever. And so I just wanted to comment that, yeah, there is efficiencies, but we're also showing that customer satisfaction does increase the more informed they are. So I'd like to talk about the interim hand solution to start with. This is the one that we did, basically that we implemented in the year 2011. We chose to go with an SCP-provided IHD, and we intentionally went with a limited launch of just 500 customers. It was a targeted enrollment where we were utilizing the My Account. So if we had a customer who was signed up with My Account and had a valid email address in the My Account, then we were sending out emails, which was very inexpensive, by the way, to reach these individuals. We'd send out 2,000 emails at a time, and we had you could expect the same number of enrollments from each 2,000 wave of 2000s. We had 50 enrollments the first day, 20 enrollments the second day, and 10 enrollments the third day after sending out this recruitment email. So it was kind of interesting. But we basically leveraged the existing. We have a contractor who installs all of our AC cycle switches, and we were able to leverage the same work order system and the same processes of communication with that contractor to have the contractor drop ship these devices to customers. They would enroll online, and we had a manual process to create the work order to the contractor, and then the contractor would be able to help us by grabbing the MAC address and installation codes off the device and helping us to put it into the system and basically associate it with that service address that the device was going to. As we go through this, or towards the end, we can talk about that more, but the MAC address and the install codes is necessary for the development of that encrypted connection between the meter and the device. They both need to be there. They're both long, your MAC address is like 16 characters. Installation code could be 20, 24. It's up there. But those two codes need to be accurate for that encrypted device, or the encrypted connection to the device from the meter. It mentions there the new advanced load control system. This first phase did not include load control, but our advanced load control system played a key role in this. The purpose of this project was to make sure we had the fundamental elements for successful device registration and management of those devices across our service territory. So it is like our one-stop shop to see all devices registered to the Smart Connect network. With the hand devices, we provided, you can see the sub-bullets there at the bottom. With a hand device, a customer was able to get their near real-time usage. As I mentioned before earlier, that we are calculating daily the bill to date, bill forecast, tier position, and tier pricing. Well, we actually created mechanisms to update that on the hand device each day before 10 a.m. So a customer would also have that billing information show up as a text message on the device in their home. And additionally, you'll see that I have a Save Power Day there. That is really a peak time rebate program that we have. And we would also send the peak time rebate event notification on day ahead down to the devices as well as a text message. So it just acts as another convenient form of messaging to the customer. Now, we had a requirement from the California Public Utility Commission to conduct a real-time cost pilot. And so what we did is we took 500 of the, 250 of the 500 IHDs, and we had them programmed so that the device would scrape the actual price or cost from that text message that I mentioned, and then calculate a real-time cost in the device. This was it worked pretty good. I was really impressed, and the customer's response was very affirmative. They appreciated the cost element included on that. So from that initial deployment, I wanted to go over a couple of things that worked and a few things that were challenges. What worked really well is a limited deployment. It's really a smart thing, especially looking back, to just really go slow out of the gate and to make sure that your systems and your devices and everything is doing what it's supposed to be doing. In our case, we had deployed about 12 devices to start with, and just it was surprising just how many different things we had to look at and to resolve to get things rolling stronger. The bottom bullet there is piloting with employees first. That was essential. We had about, to start with, we started with about 35 employees who we called friendlies. And it was good to have them engaged at the beginning, and then with an expectation that we could contact them during our deployment to resolve any issues in the future. It wasn't uncommon for us to get a hold of one of the employee customers and to perhaps unprovision their device and then reprovision or register that device again, simply to test a certain system element that we were trying to resolve or something. So it was really important. Then the second bullet there is testing hand devices. If you're not familiar, Southern California Edison has a terrific test lab. I can connect you with the people involved there, but it was really comforting to know that the devices were tested and were known to be good. And like when you do a deployment of this size or this magnitude, you really want to have reduce the number of variables as much as possible. And because of our testing and our understanding of the devices involved, that was one variable that we could take out of the picture pretty much as we were moving down this next phase of hand deployment. The next bullet there, you'll look at the operational processes. What we discovered is with hand, it's a new product. It's a new service at Southern California Edison. So it really required a lot of collaboration among the groups that would need to provide the support. I always joke because it was like 100 years of life powered by Edison, and a lot of these organizations that I had to work with had never talked to each other during that 100 years. So we were, over the course of that year, we were often in all-day workshops to map out these processes and to agree to how a certain element of the support of troubleshooting a hand registration could occur. And then once we had those processes mapped out very well, we created a workflow tracking mechanism. In our case, we have SAP here at work, and so we created an SAP notification system that would act as a tracking mechanism to take a customer's hand issue from one organization to another, and it allowed me from my end to easily be able to track where issue was in the resolution process. Some of the challenges, obviously the customers, this is all brand new to the customers, and I always liken it to in the 1990s, if you would have asked somebody about the internet, well, you would have got mixed reviews because a lot of people didn't know what the internet would be or what it could do or what value it brought. But now everybody's using it, and I have a feeling Energy is kind of in the same spot where these customers don't really know what they want because they don't understand it and they don't know what a kilowatt hour is. And so we kind of handheld quite a few of these customers to help them understand the technology and help them understand, but there's huge room for improvement there. Zigbee communications were interesting. Lately, we've used the distance of 75 feet. We asked the customer to try to keep the device within 75 feet of their meter for the best Zigbee performance. That typically has been pretty good. We have had situations where I'll get to it later, but we have one system that was using the Zigbee where their control box was basically in a storm shelter. And so it was, after we investigated why the registration was not occurring, it was obvious they had these big old concrete walls and a very thick hardwood door, and the signal just wasn't working real well there. Again, I mentioned the operational processes, but it's working pretty smoothly now, but it still continues to be a point where there needs to be some heavy collaboration across business groups to make it work correctly. And this phase of the hand deployment was very manual. We're still learning what parts are best to automate. We have automated some, and I'll talk about those in the future, but there's a lot of work. And then the last thing there is we deployed these devices without any of the customers' investment. And what we found is that when we deployed 500 devices, we really had to chase the last 100 to actually get them to register their device. And in fact, some of them, up to over 40, we never did get a hold of. So I would always suggest that you don't just give a device away, but you look for a way to get their skin in the game. Figure out a way that there might be a rebate or maybe there's just something, some kind of partnership or obligation on the customer's involvement. But anyway, we learned that, and here on out, there will be some way to really get the customer's interest in the device. So with these first 500 customers, we sent out, I think it was something like 40,000 surveys. No, wait, I apologize. I got confused. I was confusing programs. We sent out surveys, 3 different surveys for these 500 customers. And from it, we got some pretty clear messages in that the customers, you see they keep it simple there. The customers are not going to put much effort into energy. It's probably one of the more sexier parts of the utility industry, but in their world, energy is not something you get real excited about. So whatever we do with customers, we need to keep it simple. We need to help them understand. The cost is always better in the customer's eyes. If they see cents per hour, it makes a lot more sense to them, and that's obvious, I think. Almost all the customers said that they appreciated the real-time energy information, and they all said that they did something like run around the house and turn on and off major loads to see what kind of loads they were. Then most of them said that they did change their behaviors, that they became more sensitive when they went to make a purchase of an appliance or household stuff, that they were looking to just look for energy efficient equipment. And then I mentioned the Save Power Day event. In Southern California Edison, I mentioned the peak time rebate program. Well, if you have a registered hand device with us, it enables you to participate in the peak time rebate with enabling technologies, and that's a rather high incentive. Our regular peak time rebate will award the customer 75 cents per kilowatt hour that they save below their baseline, which would be the average of the 3 highest use days over the previous 5 non-holiday work days. So with the enabling technology, when you have a hand device that's registered, you can actually earn as much as $1.25 per kilowatt hour that you reduce on a given peak time rebate day or a Save Power Day incentive day. And so obviously the customer was pretty enthused about that, being able to save a significant amount of money, and then the home array network device in the home helped them to actually be more informed about what they were doing in their home. Oops, went too far. Now another thing I want to share with you is over the course of 2012, we have pursued different strategic alliances with different retailers and service providers. In fact, we're actually going after, when I say going after, we're pursuing relationships with a number of different home improvement centers, TV service providers, energy disaggregators, and we have some academic pilots that we've been involved with. So we're looking for all kinds of opportunities to help insert this energy information into the customer's lives. The 2 that stood out is ADT and Best Buy. With ADT, we have got an alliance with them where they have basically attached a Zigbee dongle to their ADT control box router. And so and the important thing about this is I wanted to share with the audience that there's been a lot of talk about standards and a lot of communication protocols and so forth. And I think it's just important to note that there's going to be a blend of these things in the home going forward. Obviously, Wi-Fi will be dominant in a lot of cases, but in this case, here's an example where ADT, by attaching an adapter to their control box, they were able to pair their Zigbee dongle to our meter and feed near real-time energy information into their ADT system for the customer. So the customer had a keypad, and on that keypad are the widgets of the different services and products that ADT is providing for them. And then one of those widgets is the Southern California Edison logo, and they can click on that and they can see their energy information right there integrated into their system. This is essential because we have to look for ways to integrate that energy management information into the customer's lifestyle. As you know, most research has shown that customers they are not interested in another screen in their life, but the more that we can integrate it into their existing lifestyle, the better we're going to be at helping them to manage their energy. The one thing that ADT is doing too that's really cool is they are setting it up so that the customer could program their house to automatically respond to one of those Save Power Day events that I was speaking of, the peak time rebate. So if a customer has an ADT system that's connected to the meter, well, we'll be sending a day-ahead notice to that customer via their ADT system, and the ADT system will be programmed to pick up that notice and then respond according to however the customer has set up their ADT system. And that would be such things as perhaps dimming lights, turning air conditioning off, even pool pumps or whatever it might be. But it's kind of a unique approach that I'm really pretty excited about. And that's done for, you know, pretty inexpensive. And I think we need to pursue more of these relationships and alliances. Now with Best Buy, we're actually testing out a retail approach. In Best Buy, we're selling a couple of, I should say Best Buy is selling Aztecs and Rainforest IHDs on the shelf. We've got a few of those each registered for our network from customers going through retail channels. And we're kind of watching where that takes off. I think on this next slide, yeah. I wanted to mention that in California, the Commission has mandated a hand implementation plan that the 3 investor-owned utilities have agreed to. And in this, really the overarching theme, in my opinion, has really been that the Commission's looking for the utilities to really be providing this hand device enablement and support, and to do it in a way that the customer is able to do this independent of the utility if the customer so desires. So in this case, we were mandated in January. We were required to support any requests from customers for them to activate their hand with any commercially available hand device that they chose. And then we also have been given some mandates on how much of the hand devices we should support over the next few years, couple of years here. You will see by June of this year, we're expected to support at least 5,000 devices. By the end of this year, at least 25,000, and by the end of next year, up to 200,000, and unrestricted beyond that. So all 3 IOUs are working to that end. I know at SCE we're in great shape right now to support these. But the bottom bullet there, I wanted to point out to those on the call that we are required now to list all commercially available hand devices that we have tested for interoperability with our meters. And additionally, we have the means for any manufacturer or vendor to actually submit their device to us for us to conduct our testing on their device for interoperability. And then, of course, if it passes tests, then we would list that as well on our web portal. So now in 2012, we moved on to that next phase of our hand deployment, which we would call the load control, hand with load control. The purpose of this next phase was really to go beyond just the registration, but now to actually conduct load control via the AMI mesh network, and obviously through the meters and to the device. Part of this project, there's a number of things that were involved with this project. Obviously, we were going to roll out the programmable communicating thermostats. That's what you see there, the PCTs. We planned to limited launch of 500 of these PCTs. We're targeting customers, again, very similar to the previous phase where I was speaking of a very targeted email recruitment. We'll be reaching out to some of the customers who we have existing connections with via the email. And these PCTs these 500 PCTs will be provided by SCE and installed by our SCE contractor. I'm not sure how familiar you are with our summer discount plan, but it is a rather robust AC cycling program. We have probably, these might be old numbers, but they're right around there. I think we have about 110,000 commercial accounts, and we have like 330,000 residential accounts on this program. Well, the PCT program is designed such that it is a technology that can be selected, an alternate technology, so it plays right along in that summer discount plan on a percent cycling with or without override. And we're just now starting to deploy these. Our goal is to have 500 installed by the end of April or so. So we're working towards that end. But with this project also came a lot of other functionality that was really essential. We really bolstered up our SE.com web experience around the home area networks. Some of the things that we included were the hand customer education. We're trying to help the customer understand more and more about this technology, the benefits of this technology, and then some of the programs that these technologies enable. We also, I mentioned, I have a better shot of it here coming up, but we have the self-serve hand registration now, and we're set up basically to support any Zigbee SEP 1.x device. Presently, we have almost every kind of device registered to us. We have some, I mentioned the IHDs already that we've deployed, but we've got gateways registered, dongles, we've got PCTs even. That customers have purchased and registered with us. So that's growing, and we're learning as we go on that. We do have rebates in place. We do rebate $25 for an energy information display that's first registered with us. And we also rebate PCTs $125. $50 for the device, $75 for the installation. This money is from our business case for Smart Connect, and it was for the seeding of the market of these devices. Energy information displays, I should say, a service account is entitled to one rebate of each of these types. So they could have a total of 2 rebates, one for energy information display and one for a PCT. Of course, the PCTs, we are actively getting them enrolled into the summer discount plan once they've registered. I did mention that there was automation. This was in this project. We started to make some connection and make some automated systems in place. One of the things is, for instance, I believe I have a picture here. Rebates. We have a customer relationship management, CRM, that we have linked into so that a customer could register an energy information display and be entitled to a $25 rebate. Well, the system automatically detects whether or not the customer is eligible. If the customer is eligible, a contract is created in the CRM. And because a MAC address is unique to that device, then we're able to track and make sure that there's no redundancy or repeated payment of a rebate on a given device. That device can only be rebated once because the MAC address is tracked in their CRM. So that's how we're keeping track of some of that. The self-serve registration, this has been great because now we have a portal or a spot here where anybody can come in and register their device. That allows, it kind of frees up some of the third parties who want to offer, energy service providers may want to offer some management tools to some of their customers, and now those customers can actually come up and actually pair to their meter, pretty much independent of Southern California Edison. The one thing that has been a real challenge is those MAC address and install code, the device ID and installation code, they can be a real challenge. So we're still learning on how to get those or to influence the accurate, accurate installation of those characters. We have had to follow up with a number of customers who our system will identify, for instance, if an installation code isn't hexadecimal, for instance, or it doesn't have the right characters or the length of characters, I mean. So we have had a number of situations where we've had to chase the customer and ask them to for a clarification or to verify their codes. But beyond that, though, the actual self-registration is just fantastic because all we do really is sit and we watch our reports and make sure that it's clicking along and deal with the exceptions. But then, each week we'll be able to see how many we have registers, what types, where are they, and so forth. The one thing also I wanted to mention is we have lifestyle plans at Southern California Edison. This is where we're trying to do the heavy lifting to kind of group different rates, programs, and services according to a certain market segment. And we're pursuing opportunities to integrate HAN into these lifestyle packages. For instance, we have an in-command lifestyle package that would be more that social techie and would be into automation and be into, time and convenience. And so that might be a spot where we would continue to expand a home array network offering. And there may be other applications across these, but I just wanted to mention this is something that we're being pretty aggressive about this year to try to develop these plans. So now as we go forward, we have a number of things. We're working on business requirements right now for to be deployed in probably the later part of this year and into 2014. We're continuously looking for opportunities to streamline the customer support processes and to automate them as much as possible. As you can imagine, we're all looking for efficiencies across all of our processes right now. We want to have more registration status communications. We're looking for opportunities there's messaging that comes back from the meter regarding the status of a registration attempt between the meter and the device. And we want to enhance that and produce just some logic to it that makes it easier for a typical CSR or customer support role to interpret what's going on in that registration with a device. We're also looking at new load control applications. We are testing such things as pool pump controllers, Zigbee pool pump controllers. We're also testing, or we want to go towards a role where in California we do have homes that have 2 or 3 different air conditioners, and to be honest, we really need to figure out how we're going to work with those kind of situations with perhaps 3 different PCTs or something along those lines. We're still examining what we'll be doing with SCP 2.0. Business customers are a real concern because we have a number of small businesses. Well, almost all of our small businesses will be on a mandatory TOU coming up, and so these customers are going to be wanting more tools to manage their energy. And we believe that home array networks or business area networks will become important to those customers, and we're looking for opportunities to provide those tools. Obviously, we want to move towards dynamic pricing, a lot towards your rates that really do contribute to capacity utilization and to flattening out the curves, and we're posturing ourselves for that. And also, we've looked at some load forecasting opportunities. So that pretty much sums up. Obviously, I think there's a lot for us all to do in continuing to educate our families and our businesses in energy. We're seeing it all the time in these deployments where when the lights go on, you can tell, and they get it and they get excited about it. But it's not easy to pallet at first, and so we're going to need every opportunity to learn more and to teach more. So that's what I have, John.
All right. Well, Brad, well done on your presentation. It's an informative presentation, and you did a great job. Over the past few minutes, we have received a few questions, and I'd like to kind of toss those out to you. The first question I have has 3 questions within it, so I'm going to start out with the first one and then follow through. How many devices do you presently have registered to the ESC Connect network, or the Edison Smart Connect network?
Presently, we have about just under 600 right now, 600 devices.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to share that most of those I remember I mentioned that we did deploy about 450 of those are those in-home displays that we deployed in 2011.
Okay. How many of those were SCE provided?
Just those 450. We have since been, it's interesting because we've had customers purchasing devices on Amazon.com or getting them through Best Buy or different areas. So we have been registering customers' devices from other locations. But as I mentioned, we do have quite a few ADT customers from that strategic alliance that we had.
Okay, great. All right. How do customers know what devices can be registered to the meter?
Well, this is where we've been, we're hoping that the momentum around California will be pretty clear that if you're going to connect to the meter, you're going to have a Zigbee Smart Energy Profile 1.1 device. I say 1.x in the past, but really almost everything is 1.1 right now anyway. But it's really important that the customer understands because there can be a Zigbee in a home automation or something, and it's just very important that the customer understands the Zigbee Smart Energy Profile 1.1.
Okay. Have you seen a significant change in customer behavior since you've rolled out the HAN program?
Yeah, I'll be honest that we're still, we have people working on that right now. We got this group that's a couple of floors above me, and I always call them the wizards. They're the PhDs that get to go in and look and identify the different service accounts that are on various programs, and then check at the conservation and some of the the data to actually see what's going on as far as their use goes. But our anecdotal information from the surveys has been very, very positive in that the customers said that they couldn't help but be more sensitive around the home. As soon as they had this device in the house, they couldn't help but be more sensitive and really encouraging the rest of their family members to keep the lights out or close the door if the air conditioner's on, those kind of things. So it's interesting because I think we're going to see more and more benefits, but at this early stage, so it's somewhat anecdotal.
Gotcha. Well, good. All right. Another question. What has been the most challenging in the HAN device registration process?
Well, there's a couple of things. For years as a utility, we've talked about wanting a two-way relationship with our customer because, frankly, for 100 years, over 100 years, we generate electricity, they use it, we bill them, they send us a check, and that's our interaction. And we've been talking about how we want to, in one way or the other, kind of make the customer part of our supply chain, to bring them into the whole energy management. But when you really get down to it, if a company hasn't been doing this two-way communication a lot, then there's a lot of learning curve. And unfortunately, the HAN registration process sometimes requires quite a bit of two-way communication. So we're learning how to do that most effectively. What we've found is a lot of the HAN customers have, of course, a high affinity towards electronic communication media. So email tends to be working pretty good in most of these customer situations, but often we are having to call them or get a cell phone number from them. But most of that contact, most of those, communications are required because of the MAC address and install codes. And I mentioned that earlier because they are long, hexadecimal numbers, multiple characters. And, if those things are entered correctly, things go pretty smoothly. But if any of those digits, say somebody has entered an 8 instead of an S, or not an, I'm sorry, the other way around. This happened once, and that's why I remember it. Somebody entered an S instead of an 8 simply because they didn't, first of all, they didn't know a hexadecimal. You don't have an S. But they would enter it as best they could, and sure enough, it would come up with an error, and we'd have to chase them for the actual number. But that's something we're working through and we're getting better at.
Would you, to follow up on the question earlier, on is there an age group that kind of responds to this better than another group?
I haven't seen it because I've seen some of the younger folks get more involved. Some of the early adopters are some of those techies that want to, connect their home and they want to understand what's going on. But on the other side of it, we've had some of the elder folks that have really latched onto this, believe it or not. In fact, we had one guy, I think he's 74 or 75, right in that age, and he was in our initial pilot that I mentioned where we had 38 homes way back in 2010. And just recently, his device had unregistered from his meter for some reason, and we just laughed because it was just so important for him to get that device connected back to his meter. And we didn't expect, frankly, 2 or 3 years down the road that somebody would still be looking at this device. So it seems to be, I don't know, varying interest levels across the different generations. So obviously we're going to be tracking this, but I haven't seen any trends yet. It's kind of across the board.
Gotcha. Okay. I've got another question here. Is how long does it take to register a device?
The device, typically, when everything's working right, and I know this because they would call to register their device when our processes were pretty manual. But they would, you could pretty much be on the phone, and the customer would often see indications on their device that the pairing had been completed. Like for an in-home display, one of the first indicators was usually that the kilowatts would pop up. On a PCT or something, a little antenna would show up. But it's usually pretty quick. I wouldn't say it's like internet speed quick, but it is relatively quick.
Great. All right. Well, it's always nice to be on this end as a moderator to see the questions come through, and over again, they keep saying, great presentation. So with that, Brad, you've done a great job, and I'm going to go ahead, and that's the end of our question and answer period. We want to be respectful of our attendees' times and their schedules, and we appreciate them taking the time out to sit in on this presentation today. If you have a question that comes up later and you'd like to ask Brad Cherry the question, you could always forward it to Lisa Collins with the CS Week office, and she will get that question to Brad, and we can do a follow-up that way. I want to remind you that our next webinar will be April 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern. It's called Getting a Little Help from My Friends. And that's from Liam Broughton from Citizens Energy Group. And so we want to encourage you to be on that webinar as well. Also, I want to remind you that CS Week Conference is a little less than 7 weeks away. So registration is open. We'd love to have you there, and you get to see quality presentations like what Brad has just presented, and will be in Tampa this year. So please get online and make your registrations and your hotel reservations, and we will see you in Tampa. For now, this concludes our webinar, and we thank you for attending.